I never thought a fake marriage would be the easiest lie I'd ever tell and the hardest one to stop believing. My name's Caleb. I was 23, broke, and standing in the rain outside a courthouse in a suit I'd borrowed from my roommate, waiting for a woman I'd met exactly 4 times. Her name was Elena. 51, though you'd never guess it, she moved like someone who'd stopped apologizing for taking up space a long time ago. She ran the design firm 2 floors above the coffee shop where I worked mornings before class. We'd talked maybe a dozen times, always about nothing, her coffee order, the weather, once about a book I was reading that she'd read 20 years before I was born. Then her mother's will happened. Some clause about marriage and inheritance and a deadline that wouldn't wait for anything real. She needed a husband on paper. I needed rent money and a reason to believe my life was going somewhere. It should have been simple. A signature. A joint account. Separate lives under one lease. You don't have to say yes, she told me, that afternoon in her office, sunlight cutting sideways through the blinds. I'll find someone else if this feels wrong. It doesn't, I said, too fast, and she looked at me a second too long before she looked away. We signed an hour later. The clerk asked if either of us wanted to say anything. Elena opened her mouth. And for one terrifying second, I thought she might actually mean it. She didn't. She just smiled, small and unreadable, and slid the pen across the table like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Not to me. The first night, we didn't talk about what we'd done. We just moved her boxes into the guest room of my apartment, because her lease had already ended and mine hadn't, and that was the only part of the plan that made any logistical sense. You don't have to help with this, she said, holding a box marked kitchen misc in handwriting too neat for someone who'd just buried her mother 3 weeks ago. I know. I took it from her anyway. Our hands overlapped on the cardboard for a second longer than the box required. I noticed things I had no business noticing. The way she chewed the inside of her cheek when she was doing math in her head. Rent, bills, the math of a life she hadn't planned on sharing with a 23-year-old barista. The small scar above her eyebrow she touched without knowing she did it. How she said fine like it cost her something. Can I tell you something stupid, she said later, sitting on my kitchen floor because the chairs weren't unpacked yet. Her voice had gone quieter, less sure of itself than the woman upstairs who'd hired and fired people before lunch. Yeah. I haven't been someone's anything in 4 years. Not since, she stopped. Shook her head. Never mind. It's stupid. It's not. She looked at me then, really looked, the kind of look that goes on a beat too long to be nothing. Her hand found my arm, just resting there, light as a question she wasn't ready to ask out loud. Stay a little longer, she said. I don't want to unpack the rest of this alone. I should have said I had class in the morning. I didn't say that. We didn't unpack anything. We just sat on that kitchen floor talking until almost 2 in the morning, about her mother, about the firm she'd built from nothing, about the ex-husband who'd told her once that ambition didn't look good on a woman his age. I told her about dropping out of 2 different programs, about the guilt of still not knowing what I wanted at 23 when she'd already built and lost an entire life by then. You're not what I expected, she said, and there was nothing polite in the way she said it. What did you expect? Someone easier to ignore. I laughed, but it came out wrong, too honest. She was closer than she'd been a minute ago, or maybe I was. Her knee against mine. Neither of us moved it. Elena. My phone rang. Loud, ugly, breaking whatever that second had been about to become. My mother's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer it. Go ahead, Elena said, already pulling back, already rebuilding the 2 feet of space that made this arrangement make sense on paper. I stepped into the hallway to take the call, nothing important, just a check-in, just my mom asking if I'd eaten. And when I came back, Elena was standing at the sink, rinsing a mug that didn't need rinsing, her back to me. I should let you sleep, I said, which wasn't what I meant. You should, she agreed, which wasn't what she meant either. Neither of us moved toward the door. Caleb. She said my name like she was testing whether it still meant what it had 10 minutes ago. I turned around. She was closer than I thought. This is insane, she said, not moving. You know that, right? You're 23. I have a mortgage older than you. I know. I signed papers with you 3 hours ago because my mother's lawyer gave me no other choice. That's not a beginning, Caleb. That's a technicality. I know that too. I didn't step back. Doesn't change what's happening right now. And what's happening right now? I didn't have a clean answer. Nothing I could say without it sounding like a line, and she'd had enough of men with lines. I'd figured that out just from the way she flinched, barely, whenever I said something too smooth. So I told her the ugly, unpolished version instead. I keep waiting for this to feel like a mistake, I said. It doesn't. I don't know what that means. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Something in her face cracked open, just slightly, like a door she hadn't meant to leave unlocked. I'm not, she started, and stopped. Tried again. I don't do this. I don't get talked into things. I built a whole life out of not getting talked into things. I'm not trying to talk you into anything. Then what are you trying to do? The question hung there, unanswered, filling up the whole kitchen. Her eyes hadn't left mine. The faucet was still dripping behind her, one slow drop at a time, the only sound in the apartment. I don't know, I finally said. But I don't want to stop finding out. She didn't answer. She didn't step away either. She stepped back first, not far, just enough to breathe, and reached for her phone on the counter, like she needed something to hold that wasn't me. There's something you should know, she said. Before this goes any further than it already has. Okay. My mother's will, the marriage clause. It wasn't random. She turned the phone over in her hands, not looking at it, not looking at me. She specified an age range for the estate transfer to be considered legitimate by the trustees. Under 30. She did that on purpose. I don't understand. She met you. Once. 2 years ago, at the shop, when you delivered my espresso order because the regular guy called out. Elena's jaw tightened. She remembered you. She asked about you for months afterward. And when she wrote that clause, I think her voice caught. I think she wrote it with you in mind. Not literally. Just the idea of you. Someone who'd make me start over. The floor tilted a little under that. So none of this was an accident. I didn't know until I read the will with her lawyer. I swear to you, I didn't plan this. But she did. She did. Elena finally looked up, and there were tears she wasn't letting fall, held there by something stubborn and old. I don't know how to feel about being engineered into caring about someone. I don't know if what I'm feeling is even mine. I crossed the space between us before I could talk myself out of it, and took the phone gently out of her hands, setting it down. Then let's find out whose it is, I said. Together. We didn't kiss. Not yet. That would have been too easy, too much like the ending of something instead of the start. Instead, she sat back down on the kitchen floor, and after a second I sat down across from her, our knees almost touching again, and she really talked, for the first time since I'd known her. About her mother, who'd spent the last 2 years of her life scared Elena would die alone in a house too big for her, surrounded by clients instead of people. About the marriage that had ended not with a bang but a slow erosion, years of being told her ambition was the problem. About how she'd said yes to me not because of a clause in a will, but because for one afternoon in her office, I'd made her feel like a person again instead of a problem to be managed. I don't want you to be an obligation, I told her. I don't want to be something your mother arranged. I stopped, made myself finish it. I want you to choose this. Actually choose it. Not the will. Not the deadline. Just this. Us. If there's going to be an us. She was quiet a long moment. Then she reached over and laced her fingers through mine, slow, deliberate, like she was signing something far more binding than a marriage certificate. I'm choosing it, she said. Not because of her. In spite of the mess she made of it. Because when you laughed on this floor an hour ago, I forgot I was 51 and terrified and grieving. I just felt like myself. That's all I wanted, I said. I know, she said. That's why I'm still here. The estate cleared 6 weeks later. Turns out the lawyers didn't care how we felt about each other, only that the paperwork was clean, and for once, ours was. We stayed married. Not because we had to anymore. Because somewhere between the boxes and the kitchen floor and the will neither of us had asked for, it had stopped being a technicality and started being a life. It wasn't easy after that, not really. There were fights. About money, about her friends who raised eyebrows at the age gap, about my mother who took 8 months to warm up to the idea. There were nights Elena still reached for the version of herself that didn't need anyone, out of habit more than truth. There were mornings I still felt too young for this, whatever this was becoming. But she kept choosing it. And so did I. A year in, she gave me her mother's old fountain pen, the one she'd signed the will with. And told me she finally understood why her mother had done what she did. Not to control her from beyond the grave. To force her hand toward something she wouldn't have reached for on her own. She just wanted me to stop being so careful, Elena said. I think about that a lot. How the bravest thing either of us did wasn't falling for each other, it was staying, once the deadline was gone, and staying was a choice instead of a rule. We didn't get a fairy tale. We got something better. Two people who kept showing up for each other, on purpose, every single day. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?